Well, what do you want to talk about? Like, do you have a yeah, anything that comes up?
Whatever arises. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, yeah, it's been interesting. I've been on. I started Facebook when this pandemic hit. I'd never been on Facebook
Oh,
in my life, and it's
yeah.
interesting. I made a couple of good friends, but you're the first one I've actually seen in person. Well, kind of in
Well,
person.
what an honor.
I know it is. Uh, yes, I talked to Justin Lucido and Howard
Yeah.
Chance
Yeah.
and Milo
Love
Lucha
those guys.
and Renee Borges. So those are the four that I talked to mostly. I talked to Justin and actually Howard. I talked to
Yeah.
Howard posts a
Just,
lot. I see a lot of his
yeah.
posts.
I love talking to Howard and Justin. Yeah. I might create a group Zoom chat with me, Howard, Justin, and people can just join or something. That's definitely a possibility.
I think it'd be a lot of fun to try that, just
Yeah.
to meet each other, at least, through the computer. At least you got a face to name, which is
Yeah.
kind of nice. So,
So I had a couple conversations with Howard recently on Zoom and things, and we were talking about setting up different things and collaborating in that way. So
uh,
I'm sure we'll probably do some kind of group Zoom, some kind
that'd be
of
fun.
yeah
I
group
really got
hangout
to.
type thing.
So I think me and Joe have our own little cadre of people,
Yeah,
That'd be kind of neat, I think. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I've kind of enjoyed. It's kind of interesting on Facebook. You kind of feel your way around in the beginning, you find some people. I started out looking at the Alan Watts. I think it's called the Alan Watts Creation.
Yeah.
I've been a big fan of Alan Watts, and my oldest grandson, whose cat I'm watching, as I said before, he bought me a book of all the letters written by Alan Watts to his daughters. It's
Oh.
like it's like there's hundreds of letters. His daughter, one of his daughters is named Joan. I forget what the other one is. Uh, I listen to him. I like Rupert Spira a lot too.
Mm.
I think I
Yeah.
found Krishnamurti. I've made some comments about him as being kind of negative because he always points out the flaws in people with no way to get around them.
Yeah.
Listen to Sadhguru sometimes, but
Yeah.
he's pretty flamboyant in his brown
Yeah.
skin and his big smile. So he's kind of a real showman, I think. But
Yeah, yeah, for sure. There's a theatrical component to it.
yeah,
I do like him a lot, though. But yeah, I know
he's
what
got
you mean.
he has a huge following in India. He's got like thousands of people
Yeah,
in India. I went on a
yeah.
website for India one of these a while back. There's like probably 1,000 gurus out there, all calling them gurus. They got lists of
Oh
pictures and
yeah, at
names and stuff.
least probably more than that. Yeah,
It's really bizarre, to see all the people. I guess
and
they.
there's a lot of. That's the thing. There's a lot of. Well, first of all, there's a lot of con men out there just trying to make a buck or
Oh
get
yeah,
control or start a cult or get some chocolate or whatever the hell it is they want.
I
And then
know.
there's some people that have woken up that don't want to teach. And there's
Yeah,
some people that wake up and teach. There's some teachers that know they're not awake and we're still given the privilege to teach even though they're not awake because their message is clear enough that might as well. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways this can go. And there's
yeah.
plenty of people that wake up and never tell anyone or speak
Yeah,
about it ever. So
I know. I kind of was interested in the term awakening. I assume that's the same as enlightenment of sorts.
yeah.
I downloaded like an 8-page dissertation about enlightenment, what it is, but I've never really had anybody. What does it feel like? I mean, do you feel, it's chop wood, carry water before, chop wood, carry water after you're enlightened, I guess.
Yeah, it's just a lot
Where's,
easier.
where's the difference? Yeah. I think I think I'm a pretty bright guy. I've had a lot of experience behind me, and a lot of education and so on.
Yeah.
And I've read a lot of books over the years. I got a whole bookcase full of books by, uh,
Everyone.
John Kabat-Zinn. Yeah, my old collection,
Yeah.
everything from the Aquarian age to whoever, to Pima Chodron, to people like that, that I
Yeah.
follow. Joe Miller. I sat with Adi Ashanti for quite a long time.
I resonate with him a lot because my awakening mirrors his in almost every way. So he's the one person I can think of where it's like, oh, it's the exact same thing I went through right there. The awakening itself, anyway. But yeah,
Yeah.
what enlightenment is well, first of all, and primarily, it's the end of suffering. And therefore, because it's the end of suffering, it's the end of seeking. And the way it's the end of suffering is that it's the end of someone to suffer or not. And so that personal separate sense of self, which is ultimately an illusion and that we all tend to identify with until we don't, that's what's causing the suffering. And it's basically it's a spontaneous happening, or not really a happening. It's a spontaneous thing that happens to the me, and the me just is seen to be not real, and then suffering ends. It's all spontaneous. It's all part. There's some energetic component to it. There's some biological component to it. It's the end of identity.
I can identify that with that. In terms of suffering, maybe I'm simplifying it too much, but it's like desire leads to suffering. Unfulfilled desires lead to suffering. If I want a bigger car, a prettier house, a bigger, whatever, more money.
Yeah, it's the sense of someone desiring that. So it's not the desire itself, even though that's what Buddhism teaches us. It's not quite right. So it's not necessarily desire. It's not necessarily attachment, even though a religious Buddhist would probably fight me to the death on that point.
Yeah.
But then again, they might not.
That's why I brought it up.
Experience.
We're not going to fight to death, but I brought it up anyway.
We'll get some sock 'em boppers or something. Yeah. So basically, yeah, you still chop wood, you still carry water, your bank account still has the same numbers as last time you checked, et cetera, et cetera. You can't put it on your resume, usually. And yet everything's easier and everything is spontaneously effortless. There's still ups and downs, but everything's easier. And it's bearable finally for the first time.
I don't seem to have a problem with my life in terms of bearing things. I mean, things come up, and it's not like a series of problems you have to solve, but in a way, life is like that. But I think for me, it's the way I look at the problem. I don't look at it as something I can't overcome. It's just kind of go with the flow. I say, and do what you need to do to get things.
And that's the thing too. People that have that mentality tend to be groomed for success because they don't have a strong emotional reaction to failure or perceived failure. And they don't have a strong emotional reaction to, it's hard to explain, but the people that do tend to wake up tend to be suffering tremendously and feeling extremely separate from the rest of the world, the rest of everyone else. And yeah, I mean, you could try everything and it, may or may not, that's the thing with Buddhism. That's kind of part of why I like Adyashanti's message, because I really resonate with it, because I tried Zen for a long time and I was really deep into Buddhism for a very long time.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I not switched to Advaita, but kind of incorporated both sides of that, the Advaita message of not to, and just keep reconciling opposites. But it's not an intellectual thing, and it's a spontaneous happening. But I feel like exploring Advaita and Buddhism together was very helpful. And what they share in common is this idea of no self.
Yeah. I can, I maybe I intellectualize it too much, but in the idea of no self or life being an illusion, I also had to take it down. I was reading about quantum mechanics. You take it down to the smallest particles. Everything's waves and particles and empty space. That's kind of my understanding of what the illusion of life is. Solid things are really moving around a lot, but you just can't see them.
Right.
That's kind of the way I understand it. At this point, that's the way I understand it anyway, in terms of life being an illusion. Aside from the things that everything's changing constantly, environment, people, circumstances, thoughts.
And you're the observer. You're the unchanging observer.
Yeah, I kind
utter
of
stillness.
I taught a meditation class here for I live in a gated complex, and I taught a meditation class here for a while, and I put it together as like, the way I began to explain it kind of in the simplistic terms was that I put my consciousness outside of myself, and I observed myself as an observer.
Yeah.
And so I could see my mind, how it was working.
And that's always happening.
Yeah. Well, I guess it is. Yeah, you're kind of an observer. Rather, if you consciously put your intellect, not your conscious, outside of and look at yourself as an objective observer, you see kind of
the
things that you do.
Upon awakening, it was basically seen directly or realized directly that it's all what I'll tell you what it feels like experientially. So it's kind of like there's almost like if I took like a poster, like a blank poster, and like taped it to your back. So there's this like 2-dimensional sheet behind you, and that's this impersonal awareness that I call nobody, that some people probably call the true self, but really it's not a separate self. So self is the wrong word, but there's this witness that we all seemingly share, and it's behind. It's almost like it's like a 2-dimensional sheet behind me,
like a watcher or something. I guess watching a movie, like watching the theater of your life, I suppose, something like that. Yeah. Okay, I got that.
And it's totally impersonal. And that's the observing aspect. And so I call it nobody, but it's really this kind of shared witness, this impersonal awareness that doesn't have a face, if you will. It doesn't have a personality or a persona in it.
Like non-judgmental.
So in Buddhism, no judgment, no thought, no behavior, and yet it's just witnessing. And that's the non-dual mind. That's the background. And you could say that I am the background, and that's what's realized upon awakening. And in that sense, there's not only are you not the person, but there really isn't one. There's a human body.
That's where I kind of lose the whole. I can understand ego and ego trying to interfere with but it's like losing my body is something I haven't gotten to that point.
So it's not the body that's lost.
Or physical existence. I don't know.
That's not lost either. So really all it's lost is this inner functioning of a seemingly separate self. So there's still a body. There's still, like, the body will just spontaneously behave. There's no, how to put it. The ego mind is the sense of separation, the me. The me isn't real. It doesn't exist. It's a functioning within that is an emergent illusion of the brain, if you will. So you could say the body and the brain are more real than this little story apparatus in my mind that is pretending and trying to kind of steal your identity into that. And so you're like, it's trying to anchor your sense of identity to this fictitious narrator that's trying to stitch together a narrative, but it's actually just a functioning in the brain, I guess, or in consciousness, and it's not real. And so in the Tao Te Ching, the way they would put it is, and now the self is gone without danger. So it's the passing through the eye of the needle. It's what's left. It's what survived, because awakening is the death of the ego in a way. And so it's the what survived is that impersonal, vast, spacious awareness that it doesn't see good and evil. It doesn't see judgment. It doesn't see all these illusory projections. So the mind, the brain, it projects this, projects borders onto the landscape. It projects the
like a picture,
the division.
Kind of.
It's basically if you took a picture of a forest, and then your mind is overlaying cutting it into puzzle piece shapes, and now you got to put the puzzle pieces back. No, it was never actually cut up into pieces. It's just the mind projecting that delusion of cutting it up, and it's really what it is. It's coming from its own sense of being only a part of it all, and really you're the whole thing and utterly transcendent of all of it to begin with. So you're the entirety of the dream, and yet this is all a dream, and essentially, you're kind of the dreamer and the dream, and yet you're not a somebody. It's
and when you say it's all a dream, how do you? I can only comprehend that, as I said, on a quantum level, in terms of the reality.
So there's two layers, in my opinion, going on. So it seems like this vast impersonal awareness is imagining a brain and a body, and then within that, imagining the divine imagination, if you will, even though it's not a person or somebody.
I understand.
And then within that domain of there seeming to be a brain and a body, the brain is also like a dream machine that's projecting this false reality onto. So on a certain level, it would seem that there are different levels of imaginary, wherein this body is seemingly more real than this little self that is obviously not real. And yet on another level, everything is equally imaginary because it's imaginary. And so even the awakened mind is part of the dream.
I think I remember we talked about that briefly a day or so ago about conscious awareness. How can I put it? That I'm having trouble formulating the thought actually that I wanted to convey. That I think awareness, I equate awareness with like a no mind kind of a I've read that before, that, and I can kind of see that it's all encompassing and without any qualifications or without any judgments, you know. I can get that far anyway, so I've got a long ways to go, I guess. We'll have to talk again frequently. I need help.
Sounds good.
I'm only joking. I'm living in my own illusion. I love it. No.
Yeah, that's the thing, there's illusion, I'm a magician too, illusion isn't a bad thing. It's kind of entertaining. So it's like illusion almost sounds negative. So the way I put it in a positive light is I'd say this world is a fantasy of all possible selves and others. So it's or as Ram Dass would put it, you say the one is in drag as the many.
Yeah. Wow.
Because the one isn't to the many, so it's total opposite, almost like somebody in drag. The one is in drag as the many, because it's not actually the many. It's just pretending to be, because it wants to appear as that for some reason.
That's
even though it knows it's pretending.
Yeah, Rambas is an interesting guy. I read a bit about him. I've got a couple of his books, Be Here Now and Still Here. I guess he had a stroke at some point in time, but he was still talking, still conveying his message. It's very interesting. I guess he was involved with Timothy Leary and all those guys doing down at Esalen. I've always wanted to visit Esalen. It's a beautiful area. I've been to Big Sur, but I've never been to Esalen Institute. But I assume it's still operating down there. It used to be the place to go if you were in the in crowd.
Yeah. One of my favorite jokes from those times, because they used to fuck with each other pretty hard too every once in a while. So really? One day, they had this guy that was helping them synthesize different things, and getting different substances. And this guy walked into the room, and he puts this blue vial on the table, and he just sits there for 5 minutes silently, and they're all just staring at it. And he goes, "All right, gentlemen, listen carefully. You take this, it's permanent."
Wow.
And it wasn't. He was just fucking with them, and they all just sat there like,
can't do it. Might change.
They all just sat there real quiet for like 10 minutes, just staring at each other eye to eye. And then eventually the guy just burst out loud. He's like, "I'm just fuck with you guys."
Wow. That's funny.
You take this, you're gonna trip for the rest of your life. It's permanent.
You're there anyway, so you don't need to drink the to drink the blue vial or the green vial. I don't know, the red vial or the blue vial, kind of thing. That's funny.
But yeah, psychedelics, I've experimented with them and things in the past. And, they can give you, I took some, decent sized doses and things at times back in my, my 20s things. And, they can definitely give you glimpses, little mini Satyrs, if you will. But then you lose it again. And that can be kind of frustrating. And
it's amazing.
Kind of a dog chasing its tail in that sense too. Even Ram Dass talked about that. He eventually gave it up. So I got to figure out the spirituality thing and wake up, because this up and down thing's got to go.
Without the influence of drugs, yeah. When I first came to California in 1968, and drug culture was really, really in vogue then. Yeah. And I was living in a house, going to San Jose State from finished undergraduate, living in a house with a bunch of guys. We did a lot of experimentation with drugs. I mean, we had mescaline, psilocybin, acid, you name it. And smoking pot, of course, was de rigueur every day. Smoke pot, and eat a bunch of cookies and drink milk or whatever, and get the munchies. But yeah, you're right. I think I had some interesting experiences, with solid objects melting, colors exploding. I know one experience I had. I was in the room. I was really stoned out of my mind, and someone knocked on the door, and I opened the door, and it was this lady saying, "I wanted to see one of my roommates." Her face looked like it was. I was shocked when I saw her face. I was like, "Oh my god, what's happened?" I couldn't believe I could see the pores in her skin and weird stuff like that. It's really strange.
Yeah, it's fun. It's funny because it shows you that there's whole layers of your reality that are right here that you're not normally aware of.
Yeah,
You suddenly become aware of all your peripheral vision at once. You'll suddenly become aware of the tiniest details that you're shocked you're even aware of that you're normally not.
that's
And
true.
you can
Yeah,
see, almost too much.
yeah,
It's like the
that's how it was.
horse. It's like the blinders taken off a horse. It's kind of
Yeah, when
startled at first.
I know when I saw this lady's face, I was shocked. I didn't know what to say to her. I was speechless. So I just kind of mumbled
Yeah.
something, and I got my roommate, and let it go at that. But it was really strange. But I think my experience was that it was an interesting experimentation. But in terms of growth, it kind of opens your eyes to other possibilities. But at some point,
Yeah.
but it's limited. It has limitations,
Yeah.
and you have to go beyond those. So at some point, I just gave it all up. I got too old, and I was in another
Right.
group of people. So
So yeah, awakening is it's not overly intense like that is. You know what I mean? It's not overwhelmingly like, whoa.
I know it's like, yeah, what's going on? I'm going crazy, something.
Yeah, so you could say that that's kind of like being on a roller coaster, and enlightenment's kind of like sitting on the park bench
Okay.
at the amusement park.
Watching it all happen. Yeah. Watching the show.
But it's just totally clear, just totally calm. It's not wonky and like,
yeah. Doesn't play tricks with your
right. Quite the opposite.
Your vision and stuff. Yeah.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So and there's this tendency I find on psychedelics where the mind is kind of like, oh my God, total enlightenment. Okay, how does the light switch work? How does it work again?
Yeah.
Oh, right. It's like it goes back and forth between like total confusion and total enlightenment. And you just kind of zip back and forth, and it's never stable. It's never clear. It's never not wonky. It's like heaven and hell. It's like 100 years of life rolled up in 10 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So people always say, sometimes people say, well, you get addicted to this stuff? Like, no, God, no.
No, you don't want to.
It might actually help you transcend addiction, because the opposite of that.
I wouldn't want to live with my mind in that kind of
condition.
Yeah.
Who would want to do that every day? Even if it worked that way.
You'd be Looney Tunes, he'd be non-functional, basically, just sitting in the chair all day, tripping or something. Yeah. It was weird. Yeah, I know.
You'd either be sitting there just staring at the ceiling, or you'd be a raving psychotic running down the street doing God knows what. One of the two, eventually.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. But no, it's not like that. It's so much. It's totally clear and vast and spacious and empty. And there's just this impersonal, unmoving, stable awareness. It's kind of like the eye of a hurricane is always with me. No matter how crazy the swirling around me, there's this total peace at the very core.
Calm center.
And and if there's no suffering. So even if you walked down the street and saw me bawling my eyes out, weeping or throwing a fit or something, that might be happening. But on the inside, there's just that calm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know if it, just walking down the street, I don't even know if it would be detectable at all. Probably not.
Yeah.
Like nobody could probably tell.
Yeah.
You wouldn't really know if you met a sage or not unless they, talked about that.
Yeah. Huh. Yes. A lot to think about.
The primary delusion that's the root of all this is the idea that you're a person, not a human. I don't mean a human body when I say that. I mean, like, if you have a pet cat, it's not under the delusion that it's someone. It's just a cat body operating, spontaneously behaving. And so are we.
Pretty much,
so you and I.
Yeah.
Whether we see it or not, that's what's happening for every human.
Yeah. It seems like the ego is a big problem. Getting rid of the ego.
Maybe
I'm just
it doesn't exist.
words, but it seems that way to me. I don't know.
we think we're trying to get rid of it, but it actually doesn't exist. What we're trying to do is realize that it's not real, and it's not something that's an intellectual thing. And that may help, intellectual understanding may help, but it's kind of like, there's four layers to this. And I would say that, on the lowest frequency level, if you will, you can believe something. Okay, well, I believe, well, people believe all kinds of silly horse shit. I believe Santa Claus is going to be here tomorrow morning. Well, and I try to tell people, if you want to remember how to spell the word believe, just remember the word lie is right in the middle of it.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So greater than believing would be understanding. So, okay, well, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I understand the possibility of this thing or being no self. I can understand that. Okay, yeah, I understand. I don't know what I believe about it. I wouldn't claim to know it or not, but I understand. Then a higher level than that would be, I know. I know. You could even know for sure, and it still won't help you. And then beyond that is realizing, and it's the direct realization of no self, of emptiness, that is enlightenment or awakening, if you will. Or if we want to play it coy, we'll call it the shift in perspective.
Yeah.
So people don't yell at us for using the word enlightenment or awakening.
Well, those are kind of loaded terms, I guess, in a
so
way.
then even shift in perspective becomes a loaded term, because shift in perspective equals awakening equals enlightenment.
Yeah.
And as soon as you use that big E word, it starts triggering people left and right.
Yeah.
Oh, you think you're enlightened? No, there's nobody here. That's what enlightenment is.
Yeah.
At no point is Andrew enlightened. Oh, so you're saying you're enlightened? No, there's nobody here.
Yeah.
But the mind just can't accept that. It'll just bashing its head off the wall going, okay, Mr. Enlightenment, it's like you're gonna shit in your Cheerios tomorrow morning. You're not going to care? No, I might shoot you.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And it'll just happen.
Yeah. Jesus. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess trying to get rid of your ego is just another ego trip.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I've heard it.
There is no ego. Yeah. So it's the ego that wants control. It's the ego that wants agency and facility to do something.
Yeah.
And so the ego is what wants to kill the ego. It's the ego that hates the ego. It's the ego that judges the ego.
It's all about emotion. It's all tied up with emotion, I think,
Yeah. So what the seeker is looking for is their own absence at the end of the day.
I see.
So it's not the ego that can even see this, because the ego is the character.
Yeah.
But you, as this impersonal awareness, can realize that there isn't a person there. There's a body.
Yeah.
There's a world, kind of, right? It's real enough. It's as real as it can get, right?
Yeah.
Because of the nature of so-called reality. So all realities are virtual. And enlightenment is when there's no longer you identifying as this separate person that was born and will die.
Okay.
Not only will you not, you were never born. How could you ever die? You don't exist now as a piece of separation. You're the entirety. You're the whole thing, and you're the substrate container that holds all that content. So you're not technically even the universe or the dream. You're that arises in as an appearance, apparently.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah, that's interesting. It's difficult for me to grasp that as a concept or an idea, I guess, but I can think about it. I can do a lot of intellectualizing about it, I guess, but I haven't experienced a lot of this stuff. I can talk about it fairly intelligently, but I haven't experienced in talking about it and having experienced it are two different things. There's a wide gap there, I think, Yeah.
Yeah. But I actually, I do have to get going because we're already on the hour mark. But
okay.
Next time, like you said, we'll have it streamlined, and
I should hope so. We won't waste 20 minutes trying to talk to each other.
Well, it's not a waste, right? Like as Thomas said, I didn't fail. I found 3,000 ways not to make a light bulb.
Yeah. I really enjoyed talking with you today, Andrew. It's been
it's been
enlightening and fun and gratifying. It's nice to connect with you. We read a lot about each other, but it's really nice. It's nice to see a person and see a personality, I suppose, and
for sure,
and share thoughts with you. It's been
that's what humans are seeking primarily, is connection. Yeah. I think that's global. That's universal. I think there's a reason for that.
That's the one shortcoming of Facebook, other than doing something like we're doing, is you see a person's picture and you can talk to them, but you can't really get a sense of who they are, you know?
Yeah, the vibe isn't there, the body language isn't there.
Exactly.
There's so much missing, and that's why I started doing this, because I realized, here I am, so active on Facebook and everything, and yeah, it's better on a certain level to connect like this, because there's
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 no
more of an
comparison.
energy transmission, there's more of a clarity, there's more of a living dynamic to clarify, and I think it clicks better too somehow.
I think so too, yeah.
in this
Have
way.
you talked to a lot of people like this in the last
Yeah, well, I started doing this on March 21st,
of
and
this
I've
year?
been, yeah, just recently, and
Okay,
I've been talking to about maybe about 12 people a week.
Oh, that's a lot, actually. Yeah.
Sessions like this, about 12 hours a week,
Yeah.
roughly. Yeah.
So you're gonna buy a couch and do therapy sessions or what?
Oh, in a way.
I'm
Yeah,
only
in a
joking.
way.
I'm only joking. You know, it's
They're both trying to end suffering, so it's
yeah,
the same shtick. Yeah,
I know. Yeah. Well, that's good. I really enjoyed it.
me too. And
It's
we'll
been,
have to do it again soon. I'll
I
message
hope
you,
so.
and we'll schedule something else again soon here for April.
That'd be great. To be continued.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks so much. I
All right.
appreciate you.
Thank you, Ann, too. Take care, man.
You too. Have a
Bye-bye.
good one, man.